here to start with. Ben is the odd man out, and the rest of the members are seated as 5. Andy Conroy, Lee Levy, Tom Farkas, Daniel Sanchik, and Steve Ferguson are the 5 initial board members for this evening. Let me just mention briefly, we have a long song and dance we go through at the beginning of every meeting. I think it's somewhat inappropriate, but so that a part of it is in the record. The website address of www.norwalkct.org /1913/meeting-notices is the main link that one would go to find information about the agenda, things for the future, things for the past. And so that's your key. From there, you can find other information relative to the ZBA. If somebody were to read our record from tonight, they'll see that we included that link. Let me just note that members of the public can call in and listen to a meeting. They will not be able to speak or see any of the meeting participants now that we're still in the Zoom mode. Each meeting will use a unique meeting/webinar ID and use the link to find it. Members of the public who wish to provide live comments will need to register in advance and use the Zoom meeting platform. Participants will be muted upon entering the meeting. To speak, click the raise your hand indicator, and you'll be called on by the host of the meeting during the public comment section. Please find the information using the link. Members of the public who wish to view the meeting but are not participating can view a live stream on the City of Norwalk YouTube channel. The stream is delayed by approximately 20 seconds. Sometimes it's a little longer. Please find the information using the link. The meeting recording and minutes will be posted on the City of Norwalk website within 7 days of the meeting, usually. Members of the public who wish to provide public comment are encouraged to submit those via email in advance of the meeting. For those comments to be read into the record, they should be submitted at least 4 hours in advance of the meeting start. To T. Maldonado at norwalkct.org. All right, and having read that, I'm going to call the meeting to order. We're going to do a real quick roll call. I'm just going to repeat what I said. We have with us Lee Levy, Tom Farkas, Daniel Sanchik, Steve Ferguson, Ben, and Peter. Am I pronouncing your last name right?
And Peter.
Okay, good. I guessed right. Sometimes there's a pretty pronunciation of that.
Yeah, people sometimes put the emphasis somewhere else, but it's
right.
It's pretty straightforward.
So with all this in mind, we're ready to start. We know who the beginning 5 are. I'm going to drop out, I know, for one of these. So we're going to have Ben drop in to create the full board of 5. With that in mind, having done the roll call, it's time for the public hearings. Mr. Secretary, are you all set?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman. The first item on the agenda is 23-0119-04, Leonardo and Natalina Fino, variance of maximum number of stories, 2.5 required, 3.5 existing proposed, section 118-340C, and variance to allow parking within the front yard setback, section 118-1220J, at an existing single-family dwelling in B residence zone, property located at 34 Bird Avenue, District 2, Block 86, Lot 16. Request: the applicant seeks variance to exceed the maximum stories allowed created by excavating without permits and to allow the parking area created in the front setback to remain. Background: This single-family dwelling was built in 1930. The owner undertook alterations and excavation of the front yard without zoning or building permits. The owner was ordered to stop work by both the building and zoning departments in January of 2021. The property has been in the zoning citation hearing process since the summer of 2021, and the property owner seeks this relief from the Zoning Board of Appeals to cure those zoning violations. Previous variance application was made to the board in 2022. However, the applicant had to withdraw due to the statutory time limits allowed analysis and findings. This is a self-created hardship. The once sloping front yard is now a large swath of stone, concrete, and gravel. If the board considers granting the relief, a condition of approval could be to restore half of the fill, grading, and landscaping to make it similar to front yard conditions at the property next door at 32 Bird Avenue. Attachments: 4 photos of pre and post excavation conditions. Revisions: the building inspector has indicated that he will require an engineer's report for the foundation of the structure prior to issuing building permits. In addition, he has deemed the plans dated 1/19/23 for ZBA insufficient to issue a building permit. The board may wish to condition any grant by restricting the property to remain a single-family dwelling with no accessory dwelling unit permitted. Mr. Chairman.
Do we have somebody here this evening representing 34 Burritt Avenue application?
Yes, good evening, members of the board. My name is Lucas Thomas of Owen, Sean, and Nicola, and I represent Natalina and Leonardo Tino, who are with me here in my office. We started this hearing, if you will, I think in January, and 2 of the items that were provided to the board were the structural inspection report. I'm hoping Tammy has it, and then also updated plans. But I can discuss anything you would like about the plans. When I did speak to the building department, they were a bit more standoffish, if you will. They said, well, we're not going to really look at your plans until you get your zoning stuff done. So I'm kind of still stuck between a rock and a hard place. However, we did have updated plans that are legible. We provided that to the office staff, and we also have the structural inspection report dated February 24th, 2023, that from James Quill, the professional engineer, that says that the building and the retrofit were done appropriately, and there's no issue with the structure.
Attorney Thomas, just let me know anytime you want me to share screen of any of those items.
Sure. I think the main, I did review the I guess YouTube meeting minutes, if you will, and I think the board's issue last time was a structural inspection report. I think if we can put that up, the February 24, 2023 report, it really is 3 or 4 sentences, and my conversation with a professional engineer says that it's fine. That's all the building department requires. So if you guys haven't seen it already, Tammy can put it up. But if you have seen it, then the document speaks for itself as to the safety of the structure.
Let me interject as chairman. We are going to work on the zoning side of this. We're not going to work on the building permit side.
Yes.
I've already conferred with the building department, and I have been issued, that site has been issued 2 stop work orders. The first one was issued, the stop work didn't seem to take effect, so a second one was issued. They're well aware of our concerns about safety. And now it comes down to, do you meet our requirements within the zoning ordinances? We're not going to address the structural integrity of the building, is my point.
Oh, okay.
The building department is well ready to do that.
Very well, sir. I was just following up from where we left off
Yep.
at the
So
last.
I
meeting.
needed to make sure that you were in contact with the building department, and after the stop work orders, it seemed like you had stopped communicating with them. And I'm sure you're communicating now, so
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
We are, and again, I hope you have the updated plans that are hopefully legible. That was the second part of the issue last time. But I think I presented at the last meeting that I was at. So I think I would leave it up to the members if they do have any issues or any questions. I still feel that parking is now become a main factor, especially since we found out recently that there's some sort of, I don't know, some sort of business that didn't get a proper permit either. That's a robot car thing, and that there's parking everywhere all the time now on the street, and that's just unfortunate for my clients. And that's part of the setback to allow parking off street. And again, to summarize that the building itself didn't change. They did dig out the front.
With regard, I can't tell whose doorbell that is, so I'm going to ignore it right now. The bottom line on the parking, from my point of view, was that it is there for a reason, and we don't quite know what that reason is. And then it seems a bit overdone, and restoring a portion of it to lawn would be a possible solution. Moving on from the parking.
Yes,
You want to have a third story approved, which is the basement that's been excavated.
yes, we went down. So the building sightline, if you look at all the other adjoining properties, that the level's the same. My clients went down, which is what brought about the extra story, if you will. And that's I'll reiterate and summarize what I said at the prior meeting. It started from a sewer pipe main break, and they dug that out, and then that just led to them making these decisions to take all of it out. And with the new plans, it shows that when you go into the back, it'll be a series of 8 stairs that lead up to their main building. They would go through the front door, the back, all the way to the back. It's 8 stairs on the right-hand side, goes up, as opposed to the 15 or 18 stairs that were there when there was a hill. That was the only way to get into the building prior to the excavation. And my clients, again, have been there since the mid to late 70s. The only owners, they're retired, they're elderly. Also, Mr. Fino has, and I think that was provided to the staff as a letter from his doctor, where
May I stop you there?
Yes, sir.
Where in the zoning regs does it say medical reasons are grounds for a variance request?
Well, there wouldn't be any. It's just simply
So anybody with a
information.
handicap could then apply to our board for relief because they have an illness.
No, I didn't.
Well,
mean
wait
it
a
that way.
minute, wait a minute. We're off the rails here.
Yeah, it
Yes,
was just,
somebody who's handicapped could apply for a variance, but it would be pertaining to their handicap and entrance and exit to the building.
But my point is that in the years I've been seated, I have never seen a medical request come across our desks.
Yeah, this one was sort of uncertain in its tenor, and I don't know that it's pertinent. But yes, there are times and occasions when it matters. Move on, sir.
sure. So so really that's where we are, that they did start to do some building work inside their home. And it wasn't until they were approached by the building department to stop the work, and it was only then that they were advised to go to the in front of you, in front of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And that's sometimes later when I got involved, because I wasn't from the beginning of the process. I got involved late last year.
So the key request is to treat this as a three-story building. That's the key request.
Yes, yes, sir. Excuse me.
So
I have a,
the parking issue is a secondary issue. And we can treat it as existing, and do we want to see modifications to it if we accept it as is? We also have the question of how the building is going to be used, so we might require that the building remain a single-family home.
Yeah, no, that's always the intent. It will, if a condition were to be added on that they cannot rent out any portion of that to tenants, that won't be an issue. That is their home, because even that basement level now, that will be their main access way. They will be going in that way, walking the 2 or 3 steps from the, let's call it the driveway, into that new lower level, going to the back, and then going upstairs that way. So they wouldn't be able to rent out that unit, if you want to call it that, and turn it into an accessory unit and rent it out. So it'll just simply be, that's their way to get in, and that's how they're going to go upstairs.
Yeah, and they can live in it too. I mean, it's not,
Oh, yeah.
that's not an issue. But the issue was it going to be turned into an accessory apartment without telling us that it was going to be turned into an accessory apartment?
It will not be turned into an accessory apartment.
Okay, all right. Board members, ask your questions, please.
I have a question. If the fill is like half put back, right? Like you could kind of keep it on half of the site and not impact that kind of front entry, and you kind of regrade the left half of the site there. Tammy, does that change the need for it to be viewed as a 3-story structure, or would it still be viewed by planning and zoning as needing to be 3 stories?
Maybe, maybe not. So I would need the grading calculation done by the surveyor, because it's the average grade just at the front. So just that front plane, and it's the finished grade versus the basement ceiling. So that has to be 3 feet or less to not count as a story. So
Okay.
I don't have
Yeah,
those
and there
metrics.
might be a way to like
Yeah,
knock that request off.
Even
Mr.
right now,
Thomas,
yes,
would you agree that this is a self-created hardship?
I have to agree with that. I can't say that it wasn't. It simply was and again, ignorance of the law is no excuse. You know, that's a great saying, but it simply was a snowballing effect, and they didn't get. It's unfortunate that they weren't notified or didn't realize it until much later, when much more work was done. It was always done in their estimation. It was with good intentions. If they had gone to get their permits first, I think similar, they would be in the same spot. It just simply they weren't able to do it. They did not do it, and you know, this is me on behalf of my clients seeking forgiveness as opposed to permission.
And once again, board, we're not worried about what the building permit issue is. The building department is well aware.
And if we look at the survey, the surveyor has already, it's so close on that mark that we're talking about. I think it's less than, it's only a few inches off. Even if we weren't to somehow find a way to put more dirt on to make that calculation, it would be, we're really, really tight right now. We just haven't been able to get there. So we are seeking the relief.
Okay, so it is my understanding that the grade cannot be modified on the basis of trying to gain a couple of inches. The grade is the grade.
That's right.
Okay, so your client's efforts to raise the grade to make those couple of inches is not a valid argument.
That to
No,
raise the grade.
You still, wait a minute, therefore you still want the variance. That's Lee, that's understood.
Right, right. We're looking for the variance for those
Yeah.
few inches. Yeah.
Which is again, a reason that we wondered about the accessory apartment, but we'll move on from there.
My other question was about the parking. There's no, in the photo that we have, there's no curb cut.
Right. And I discussed that in the prior meeting. I did speak to the Public Works Department, and that would be part of the process. They would go, we would do the sightline reviews and then get the permission and the permits then in conjunction with, you know, the work that they have to do with the building department.
Okay, I mean, that's also not shown on the survey, right?
Danielle, I see just one curb cut that doesn't seem to be too wide for a standard curb cut. Do you see something different?
I don't see a curb cut on the survey, so I don't know if I'm not looking at the right survey, but
Well, when we first started dealing with their documents, they did show in the initial document they brought to us, a curb cut was between the two Mason posts that were put in.
got it. Okay.
That might have been, you know, imagination at the time. So they still have to do something a little more formal. How about anybody else with questions about Brett? So if you have any questions about the adequacy of the building meeting zoning requirements, now is the time to ask them. We're just going to skip just the building permit issues.
Well, let me ask one more thing, a clarification. This was a 2.5-story home, and you're requesting not a half-story variance, but a full-story variance. Is that correct?
That was simply the discussions that I had with the office staff, that was their recommendation, that it should be a full story. But if there is a possibility to make it a half story, and if that somehow makes it comply, I wouldn't have any issue if that's some sort of requirement to update an application or retroactively. That's fine.
Well, I have no idea whether you're asking for half-story or full story.
I think it's simply.
Well, wait, hold on. Tammy,
But so if you,
you know the weirdness of half stories, so.
right,
does
so
it
I
need to
just
be a full
recommend
story?
staying with the request for 3 stories. If we call it a half story, then you're restricted to only finishing 60% of the attic area based upon the space below. So in other words, if there's 1,000 square feet on the second story, you can only finish 600 square feet on the half story. So if you ask for 3 stories, then you can. I
But we're
believe-
not, with some of the oddities in the code, forced into a 3rd story. We can do a half story.
You could, but then it will restrict them. I could check the plan. I'm not sure if they would comply.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
just
and then,
want
like, again,
it clarified because 2 numbers were bounced around earlier in this hearing.
2 numbers were bounced around regarding the story.
Yes, I heard 3 stories and I heard 3.5 stories. And I wanted to get it clarified in my mind what was being requested.
Our initial request is the full extra story. So it's the 2.5 is anything over 2.5 is an issue. So it'd be the full story, and because we're working from the top that's already it's not really changing. It's already there and we're just moving down.
Yeah, let me interrupt. I'm sorry, because I misspoke earlier. I just referenced my own staff memo. So it's without, the grading was excavated, it was an existing 2.5 story. When you excavate the grade, and the average grade is then that difference 3 feet or greater at the foundation level. Now the foundation level is a full story. So then the need is to, if the board sees fit to grant the request, it is to allow 3.5 stories, because as it exists right now, it is 3.5 stories.
Yeah,
Thank you, Tammy.
I do believe that that's what we had been talking about previously,
Very
was
good.
3.5 stories. And I think there was a debate at one point in time as to whether or not the basement, having been revealed through excavation, actually counted as a story. It does.
Unfortunately, it does, yes.
Anyone else with a question for Attorney Thomas?
I have one. Good
Yeah, go
evening.
ahead.
What is the current square footage of the home and what will be the proposed square footage? Living square footage?
The current square footage, including the new basement, if you want to call it that.
Yeah, the new floor.
What is it all together?
Steve, you mean what was the 2.5 story square footage, not including the basement? And now what is the 3.5 story, including the basement?
Yes, thank you.
Let's see if I can find that. The square footage at prior to it hasn't changed. The bump out in the back would be the only thing that would change it. Hold on.
So whilst Attorney Thomas is doing that, Tammy, was there a porch area that was enclosed in the front of the house? That used to be a porch, because that's typical on that street.
Let me I'll share the screen with the Google Street images I had provided. Hang on just a second.
Yeah, because
I
it
don't
seemed to
recall.
me that they had taken the porch and then closed it.
Does
And
appear the porches have been enclosed. I'm looking at the series of 4 photographs.
Second floor.
Second
The
floor
first floor
porch?
was already closed in 50 years ago.
So
The
the
second floor was a balcony, but it leaked all the time to the first floor.
So when did you do that?
That was done when this whole
Yes,
incident
there
started.
one on the second floor was. And that's part of the stuff.
So do
Oh,
you
it
have
is?
Square footage.
You
numbers
didn't
for us?
complete the enclosement?
And the completed?
It's complete, we're waiting for building permits for
It-
zoning. stuff.
Yes, it was done, but it was, obviously, they're not doing any further.
Okay,
There we go.
so,
That's
yeah, it looks
the
to
one
me
with the
like
5 windows.
Yeah,
porch.
5 windows, the bottom half below the 5 windows was there, above it was just where it was just because the roof was leaking for years and years and
That
it
part.
was.
there's other homes that have had that done on that street. So that needs to be part of the application. I mean, you can't just sort of wish it to happen. It has to be requested. So your total square foot falls within the foundation line. You haven't expanded the house outside the foundation line, but
No.
you have added living space by enclosing the porch.
How much space was in that?
It's like, I mean, it's like 6 feet out,
6
and it's
feet,
like, it's
okay.
like about, I think it's like 16 or 18 feet across. So
Yeah.
it's not a great amount.
Yes, that part was added up top, unfortunately. But it's
Maybe 100 square feet.
the review from the staff was simply the story is what they were what we discussed. This is something now that is
John
new
was
to
saying-
us.
Well, it wouldn't be it's not I don't think, I think the board member was asking not as an additional need for variance, but just trying to understand the impact that this would give to the home. So if you're not expanding the bird's eye view footprint at all. It's just an additional story's been created due to the excavation.
Yeah, no, that's the prime issue, but there is a square footage increase, Tam.
Right, but in zoning, the lot coverage is not, there's no floor area ratio for residential. It's strictly, they meet the metrics for buildable lot coverage.
Okay,
Do you want me to stop sharing the screen?
well, I just, yeah, we don't need to keep doing this. Are there other questions from our zoning board members? Hearing none, do we have any?
Well, I have a question. So the cars are gonna be parking in front of the door, right? I'm loath when I see cars parked on lawns and things like that, but it seems to be an epidemic. Is that gonna prevent emergency service crews from coming into the home? God forbid something happens, you're butting cars up against your egress?
No, they would be, so the cars would make the shape of an L, if you will. So it's not in front of the door to stop egress. One car would go straight in, if you will. The second car would be tucked to the left. And there's plenty of room between the two cars to go into the front door. So there wouldn't be any blocked access.
And just anecdotally, you bring up another point here. There's a business or something that's bleeding onto the street and preventing cars from parking. Are we going to see
Well-
other neighbors looking for redress because of the situation? I'm unaware of this before. Yeah,
I was made aware of a business that is now in that neighborhood, in addition to the boat club and the holiday parties and long weekends that they have there. Something that almost every weekend has a big draw, and they're doing something with robot fighting something or other, and it's all of those, that parking is in that neighborhood now all the time.
thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Okay, so now we need to know if we have somebody from the public that has a question. Anybody raise their hand, Tammy? And you're muted. by the way.
So I'm sorry, yeah. So if you're attending, if you wish to speak on this matter, signal by tapping the raise your hand feature. If you're called in, which I don't think we have any call-ins, I think these are all participating via computer. But if you're called in, you have to press *9 to raise your hand and then *6 to unmute.
Give them
No
a minute.
raised hands.
Okay, so that was, is anybody speaking for or against? Raise your hand.
No raised hands.
No raised hand. All right.
We did have a number of letters.
We do have some communication that Lee, you might want to, if you see anything that's repetitively,
They were all repetitive.
but one,
I'm looking for them right now.
you only need to read the one letter and then note each of the people that sent a letter.
Oh,
separately.
boy. Okay. Here
But
we go.
you don't have to reread the body.
Okay. The form letter is dated March 16th, 2023, Zoning Board of Appeals, room 129, Norwalk City Hall, P.O. Box 5125, Norwalk, Connecticut. To whom it may concern, I am a neighbor of Leonard and Natalia Fino, who reside at 34 Burritt Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut. I have reviewed the project they have submitted to your board dated March 13th, 2023, and fully endorse the approval of the project you presented to you. And I will attempt to read some of the names. Virginia Romas and Charles Romas. And they don't indicate, they're at 6 North Street. We've got James Can at 38 Burt Avenue. Alicia Mayer at 7 Mack Street. Fred Marchetti at 66 Shorefront Road, Park rather. We've got, wish people would print their names. Shannon, looks like Berger at 14 Shorefront Park. Philip Garbarinen, 34 Shorefront. Kathy Olson at 38 Shorefront. Roxana Labrosano at 30 Burrett. Janet Loeb at 36 Burrett. Danielle Devine at 28 Burrett. John Scheinenberger at 17 Shorefront. Peter Burgust at 9 Mack Street. Joan Ridgway at 2 Mack Street. Diego and Barbara Pardo at 2 Knapp Street. Jesse George at 4 Shorefront Park. Joanne Christian at 6 Mack Street. And that's it.
Did you happen to read the body of that thing?
Yes, I read it. I read the body of the letter. I'll reread it again.
You want me to read it? I could.
I've got it.
Okay.
I am a neighbor of Leonard and Natalia Fino, who reside at 34 Bird Avenue, Norwalk, Connecticut. I have reviewed the project they have submitted to your board dated March 13th, 2023, and fully endorse the approval of the project presented to you. And that was on all the letters that I have in my possession.
Mr. Chairman, is it necessary to acknowledge or read the letter from the physician, or that's not necessary for public comment?
Well, I'll read it just to be sure that we've got it. It's short. Reference the applicant. It says Feb 10, 2023, to whom it may concern. By the way, this doctor is from the Department of Veterans Affairs in West Haven, Connecticut. My patient, Mr. Leonardo Fino, has given me permission to share some medical information with you. I am his general physician at the VA clinic in Stamford. Mr. Fino's medical condition includes arthritis and asthma. Mobility may be impaired by either of these. Notice it says may. Should you have any questions, please reach out to our clinic call center, and then he provides a phone. Thank you for your support of our US veterans. Dr. Ann Heiston at Stanford VA, and then provides the address. As I said, it was indeterminate. He does have issues. So with that, I don't think that affects anything that was being requested. We're not adding ramps. And we're not making changes to stairways. We're all set here. I mean, what you've got is a building that was changed without permits. So we have to look at it now from a zoning point of view, which we can do later when we review it. And we're still at the collection of information point. If there's anybody that had anything further that they wanted to add, now's the time to do it before we close this out. Not hearing anything? Okay, we'll close the hearing. Move on to the next. Mr. Secretary. Thank you, Attorney Thomas.
Okay.
Thank you.
Item 23-0316-02, Charles and Michelle Green, variance of height, allowed 31 mid-roof, 39 peak roof, proposed 32.8 mid-roof, 39.9 peak roof, proposed stories, allowed 2.5, proposed 3. And lot coverage allowed 2,085 square feet, proposed allowed 285 square feet, proposed 2,488 square feet. Section 340C for raising an existing single-family dwelling to make flood compliant in B residence zone. Property is located at 70 Roten Avenue, District 6, Block 9, Lot 36. Request: the applicant seeks variances to lift an existing home located in the flood zone. Background: this home was originally built in 1950. Variances were previously granted for setbacks for both the dwelling and the detached garage. The most recent was granted in 2003. Analysis and findings. If this request is granted, the existing home will be raised and made FEMA flood compliant, while the proposed elevated deck will expand the maximum lot coverage allowance. It does meet setbacks and will have minimal impact on overall massing of the structure. There is no expansion of the primary structure proposed. Mr.
Okay.
Chairman.
Quick little administrative detail. Steve, unmute yourself. So the board members that are going to sit for this are Lee Levy, Tom Parkus, Daniel Sanchek, Ben Hampeter, and Steve Ferguson. I'm not sitting on this one. So you guys go ahead. Somebody's got to
Okay.
lead this.
I'll act as temporary chairman, and Mr. Blank, I'll assume you're representing the applicant.
Yes, Mr. Temporary Chairman.
Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, Adam Blank. I live here in Norwalk, attorney for Charles and Michelle or Mindy Green, who own 70 Roten Ave. And I guess we've got a couple new commissioners. I see Steve Ferguson is making the rounds of all of the boards in town, so it's good to see you. Let me share my screen. So 70 Roten is here, Roten Avenue up here. So it's just across the street from Farm Creek. It's not actually on Farm Creek. The existing, this is a photo of the existing house. You can see it's not elevated to be FEMA compliant. The architect, Michael Stein, unfortunately had a conflict that he couldn't get out of this evening. So I'm going to do my best to answer those questions, and you've got me outnumbered on your commission with architects, so I will do my best. And the homeowners are also on the Zoom, and they'll try to answer any questions you have. Again, it's in the flood zone. It's constructed in 1950. The Greens bought the house actually 40 years ago. It doesn't meet FEMA's minimum flood elevations, and they want to raise the house 7 feet, so it's FEMA compliant. And there's sort of two sections to this variance. One is one that you've heard before and have typically been very receptive to, and the other is just sort of a unique created by the raise. We need to raise it 7 feet. Your regs require you to be at base flood elevation 13 plus 1 feet. And that's where your ductwork has to start. So we get to that with our ductwork, with the insulation, then the beam, then the floor joist, and then the first floor elevation at 16.9. So there's literally no play in the numbers. It's the minimum necessary to raise it so that it becomes FEMA compliant. But by raising it, as you can see, the house is pretty tall on this section to start. By raising it, we do go, the max is 31 feet for the midpoint of the roof. We're going to be at 32.8. The peak is allowed to be 39 and will be 39.9. And then, as some of you know, and for maybe the newer board members, when you raise these houses up, the ground underneath that new first story is considered a story, and that puts us, we're already at it's a 2-story home, so it will become a 3-story home simply by lifting it, and there's 2.5 stories is the maximum allowed, so we need a variance for stories. It'll be the same finish, the same materials, and it's not a knockdown. This is just a raise the house to make it FEMA compliant. That's sort of collectively the first ask, that you allow us the height variance for the midpoint and the peak of the height and the story, so that it can become FEMA compliant. If you'd like, I can go through the legal authority on that, but you've heard it a number of times before, and I won't unless I'm asked for that. The second issue comes from when the house, this is the survey, this is the existing house. It says proposed deck right here. Where this proposed deck is, this is currently a patio, and they have some French doors. I'll zoom in a little so you can hopefully see it better. So on the main sort of living level, this is now at ground level, you've got a family and dining that open up to their patio. Well, when the house is raised 8 feet in the air, these doors, it's quite a bit of a first step to get down to the patio. So what they'd like to do is to essentially lift the patio, get rid of the patio, and make it a deck. So when you walk out of the dining and the family, you actually have a structure there. Unfortunately, their lot coverage, they already are pre-existing non-conforming with respect to coverage. You're allowed 35% of the site to be covered. They're at 39%, and this would add about 173 square feet of coverage, so it becomes 42% of the lot area. So we need a variance for coverage to allow them to put the deck in. The deck would be pervious. In other words, water will drain through it to the ground below. The existing patio is actually worse because that's impervious. So we think this is a sort of an environmental benefit, but it's also, again, it's necessitated. The hardship is created by virtue of the fact that they've got to raise their house. If the variance were to be denied with respect to the deck, then they'd still need, or they would put stairs in, I assume, coming down here, and these stairs would then have to be masonry to not count towards coverage. So you'd have this massive mound of masonry up to both doors to get access, which again is, I think, much worse than allowing the deck that's been proposed, and it's a modest in size. I can go through the elevation. I can go through whatever you'd like to see, but I don't want to go through more than you want to see and take up time that you don't need. We do have I do want to say that we do have letters of support from just about every single neighbor and no one other than the neighbors that are in your file. We're not aware of any concerns or opposition that's been raised by any other neighbors. And again, your regulations and the case law on raising houses for FEMA certainly permits a variance in this circumstance. That's my pitch, but I'm happy to go through anything else you'd like, and the clients can talk as well if you have questions for them.
I will assume that the architect has made provisions for any breakaway walls, flow-through vents, and that there's no mechanicals or other services located below the flood elevation.
Yes, I don't believe they're breakaway walls. I think it's flood vents, but it will be fully FEMA compliant. And we've talked with your staff, and we haven't decided on it firmly yet, but the new regulations are a little not undecided about whether the new regs are going to be base flood elevation +1 or +2. And we didn't come here asking for a foot above it to build, a foot over what's currently required. But the plan is, the tentative plan is to flood proof all of the vent and ductwork, which is allowed under FEMA to comply, not under your regs, but it will provide added protection from what's required currently by flood proofing the ductwork.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from board members?
I have one question. This entry at the back of the house, right adjacent to the deck, is that also contributing to the increase in site coverage in addition to the deck? Yeah, so that closet and the stair.
This,
Yeah.
no, because this is existing. I mean, it's
Okay.
that there's
There's
structure
space
existing.
there.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
just this, and to be really technically, this is slightly more than I think 173 feet, but they're also going to take down a shed in the back, at which the net is about 170 square feet.
Okay. That's all I have.
Any other questions from the board? Tammy, do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak on this item?
I have something super quick. Is the
Okay.
new first story habitable, or what goes on that floor?
So no, under your regs, so for commercial is different than residential. For residential, that quote, ground floor, the stuff that's not above the FEMA, the base flood elevation, that's not habitable. It can be used for storage, but you can't finish it and make it living space.
Okay, that's what I thought. I was just double checking. Thanks.
Okay, so we have just one attendee, so their hand is not raised. Did we want to read the public comments into the record?
I don't have them.
Okay, I have them.
Please go ahead.
Bear with me. Okay, so this one's easy. It's just one letter and then it has multiple signatures. So January 24th, 2023, dear neighbors, as you may or may not know, we, the Greens at 70 Roten Avenue in Rowayton, are lifting our house sometime this year. We hope that you approve our decision to raise our house approximately 7 feet to prevent damage from flooding. We can share our plans with you if you're interested. Your property abuts ours or is directly across the street. Hence, we would like your signature here if you support this project. We will, of course, try to keep the project moving as quickly and efficiently as possible with the least amount of disruption to you and your families. In the coming weeks, we will send you a certified return receipt mailing that advises you of the hearing date and date and planning and zoning. Thanks so much, Mindy, Michelle, and Chuck Charles Green. And signed by Scott Principe, Nina Potter, who commented, "We love our neighbors. It looks great." And Kathy and Neil Constantine, who commented no reservations. Edward Ernst and Lynn Oliver, and Lynn says good luck. Chrissy and RJ Gutroff, yes, go Greens. And then I think we were missing one signature there.
Okay. Any other further questions? Adam, thank you for your presentation. And at this point, we'll move on to the next item on our agenda.
Thank you.
Mr. Secretary, would you read that, please?
Go right ahead, Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 23-0420-01, Joan Manning et al., variance of front setback, 40 feet required, 37.2 proposed, section 118-310C, for installing a heat pump at an existing non-conforming cottage, AAA residence zone property located at 4 Hilltop Road, District 5, Block 84A, Lot 34. Request: the applicant seeks variance to install an exterior heat pump in a guest cottage. Background: city records indicate both the primary dwelling and the cottage were built in 1933. The guest cottage is existing non-conforming. The structure is located entirely within the required front yard setback. Analysis and findings: existence of a non-conformity alone is not necessarily justification to expand that non-conformity. However, the only conforming location would be to place the heat pump on the roof, which may be a practical difficulty. The applicant proposes to place the heat pump behind the cottage, which would screen the heat pump from the street view. If granted, the heat pump would add only about 3 square feet of non-conforming footprint. Mr. Chairman.
Who do we have representing the applicant tonight?
Hi, folks. Jim Manning here. Can you hear me okay?
Sure.
So Jim Manning, son of the owner, Joan, and I'm joining to present the material to support the application for installing the heat pump in the pre-existing non-conforming 2-bedroom cottage. I've got some material, some slides to present, so I will share my screen if that's okay.
Yes.
So this is the staff memo that Tammy prepared, and I don't think I need to cover it too much. I think you just read it. So
Yes.
if there's any questions on that, I can proceed. I've got 2 or 3 slides really to go through this. I've got this memo, the site survey, I've got some site pictures, the heat pump specs, and the abutting neighbors, all of which have been notified, and we have gotten the certified return receipts from them. So this is the site survey. There are 2 red squares. The red square down at the bottom is the line for the 40-foot setback from the road. Hilltop Road is at the top there in the top left up here.
Yep.
And there's another red square that's showing the distance with the existing non-conforming. The entire building is within the setback, 37.2 feet. So we're off by a bit. We also have marked here the wall on which the heat pump would be installed. It's the interior wall, the furthest from the street. And I've got 3 pictures that follow this slide, pictures 1, 2, and 3, from different angles that help give you a sense as to what the site looks like. And I can proceed to that slide, and I think you'll get a better idea of what it looks like. Any questions on this one?
Yeah, I was just looking at the wall of the house to the setback, 40-foot setback. What's that distance?
37.2.
No. So the distance is a little less than 3 feet.
Oh, yeah, 3.8 feet. You can see a number right here,
Yeah, okay.
3.8 feet. Okay. Okay, moving to the next slide. So picture 1 shows Hilltop Road coming up here on the right. And obviously the setback is 40 feet. So it's really showing the side of the house that's up against the road. Picture number 2 is really the side of the house, and it's where the front entrance is. And it shows at the end of this arrow, the far wall, the interior wall furthest from the street is 37.2. And if we go to picture number 3, it's the view of the interior wall with a location star there where the heat pump would be installed.
So just to be clear, your 3-foot answer and my 3-foot question actually are different. I was wondering, from that exterior side to the 40-foot is about 3 feet, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. 37.2, so a little less than 3 feet.
Yeah. And you're gonna abut the machinery right up against the wall?
Exactly. We're going to actually hang a bracket on the wall.
Okay. Gotcha.
Any questions on this one? Okay, so just in case, these are the measurements or the dimensions of the heat pump with a little picture there, shows the free space, the service space required, none of which is an issue with install. I think the key dimension to focus on is it adds about 13 inches of depth. Mounted against the wall, you need 3 inches of clearance behind it. So you're talking about 16 inches of depth coming into the added setback.
Okay.
Okay. These are the abutting neighbors, the 3 stars. The red square is the address for Hilltop. The 3 stars are the abutting neighbors, all of which have been notified, and we have gotten the return receipts from the certified letters that went out.
Tammy, just to double check, you did get those 3 people in response, yes?
We got the green cards back. Yeah.
Yeah.
The 2 properties in the back of the house or up against Valley Road there down at the bottom are in fact owned by family members.
So obviously they're amenable to what you're doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Any questions on this one?
Nope.
No
Okay.
questions here.
I think it's pretty straightforward. These are just backup slides. This was the application and this is obviously the agenda. So if there's any questions, I can take them.
Given that I'm not hearing any, Tammy, is there anybody from the public that has raised their hand?
Hang on just a second. Jim, can you stop sharing your screen so I can get a different view here? No raised hands from the attendees.
Okay. So.
Is the cottage currently conditioned?
No.
Okay.
No.
Any others? With that in mind, I think we're done. Okay, thank you, Mr. Manning.
Okay, thank you.
We're ready to move on. Do a quick double check here. You want to take these in reverse order, folks?
Yes.
All right. Do we have let me just double check who we had sitting for this so that it's in the record. We had Andy Conroy, Lee Levy, Tom Farkas, Daniel Sanchik, and Steve Ferguson. Ben, you weren't really in part of that. So when we go to vote, those are the people voting on this item for 2001. I have no problem, given where the cottage is, how long ago the problem was created. What are we gonna do? Tell them to tear the cottage down and move it? I don't think so.
I have no
So,
issues with this at all.
yeah, it's, and the 3 foot just doesn't, it's not an issue. I don't think, given the property and the layout of the property.
Absolutely.
So if I hear a motion,
I will make a motion that we approve this item as submitted.
okay, how about a second?
I'll second.
So Danielle seconds, Lee makes. And I'll just make a note. All in favor? Raise your hand
Aye.
and say aye.
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 And obviously, at least I'm thinking we're all there. Hi, Steve.
Aye.
Take these in reverse order. So, yeah, it's unanimous. Approved. I'm not the fastest writer in the world, so it takes me a couple seconds to get this noted. I do this so that when we do the minutes, I can know who I actually voted for or against something. The next item, going backwards, would be the middle item.
I just want to just quickly interject. Thank you for your support.
All right, we'll see you later.
Thanks.
The Greens home at 70 Road, where they're raising it. I was not part of that, so the folks voting are Lee,
Okay,
Ben and Steve.
Yes.
again, I think this is another one of these that we have been routinely approving to keep the feet of these houses dried during flood season. And I really have no objections to what I would consider to be a very small increase in site coverage. And in fact, what they're doing by doing a pervious deck as opposed to impervious concrete may actually be an improvement. You know, I could take issue with the ridge height. They physically could cut 9 inches off of the ridge, given the way it's constructed, but I think it's a ridiculous issue to bring forward. So would somebody like to either make more comments or make a motion on this item?
By the way, I told you all before that we do this ass backwards.
Yes,
Normally you make a motion in a second and then you discuss it,
okay,
but we do it the other way around.
yes, we do.
So do we make a motion?
We need somebody to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion for approval.
Second, somebody?
I'll second that.
Okay, Tom, thank you. All in favor of approval? I see 5 hands raised, which means we are unanimously approving this item.
It looks like it's an unanimous approval.
Mr. Chairman,
Then we've
back
got
to you.
got one more to go. This is 34 Burritt. We're not dealing with the building permit issue. We're not making them redesign it. They're asking for an additional story by virtue of the fact that they excavated the basement area.
I'd like
And
to make a statement first.
Well, you're gonna have to make some additions if we're gonna do a motion. Here. Remember all
Okay.
the clauses that we're gonna add?
Okay,
Yeah,
go
include
ahead.
that in your statement somehow.
I will.
Go.
One of the takeaways I had from the zoning lecture that we were all participating in is that self-created hardships really are a big negative in terms of ZBA approvals. The owners proceeded without permits, which we are well aware. I can also foresee a time when every homeowner on Burritt would do exactly the same thing. And one of the purposes of the zoning regs is to make sure that these requests for variances do not continue down the street, thereby everybody in the neighborhood coming to us to ask for relief for a 3 or 3.5 story structure. Essentially, they would be rezoning their own neighborhood. And really, that's not the purpose of what asking for variance is about. And I will tell everybody right now, I am vastly against approving this project.
I don't think we're going to end up in a position of strength here. I don't see that there's a harm to the community by approving it as a 3-story structure. Yeah, I understand your point that it could spread through the neighborhood and that you have everybody coming asking forgiveness rather than permission. And let's say the second one that walks in, you don't approve. But at this point, I think it's kind of up in the air. I mean, is there a good, valid reason to disapprove it or approve it?
I just think that their procedure on this project is a big negative, and I think it's a big negative, to the neighborhood. I equate it to an attractive woman or man being punched in the face, having a tooth knocked out, and it's there permanently. I think this is a disfigurement to the neighborhood.
No, in one instance, I think you're right. In other instances, I think you're wrong. The house was a lot uglier at one point, and it is not as ugly today as it was.
I
And that's
think
true
the
of a number of
additions that they've put on the front have increased the undesirable design.
I didn't find the old porch particularly attractive. Anyway, we can debate that some other time. With respect to the house, the solution then would be turn them down, and that would force them, Tammy, to rebury the basement.
Yeah, that's correct. Well, they'll have to come up with, so that was kind of what the attorney was pointing out. They are, just shy of meeting it. Our metrics, shockingly, aren't that clear about how far out you set the grade point from the exterior wall. So like Danielle pointed out, what would it do? How would it impact it if they filled in half of the lawn similarly to the neighbor that I pointed out? I think that would probably negate the need for variance, but I'm not certain. So I think it just depends on how the surveyor calculates it.
So if it negated the need for a variance, then they're good to go.
Well, I think they're still seeking for potentially for the stories, yes, but then they're still seeking for the parking in the front setback.
Well,
So
maybe
even if
their
they
attorney could give
eliminated
them
ones, I'm sorry.
I was going to say their attorney could give them good advice for the future. I know that one of the options that they would have is to take us to Superior Court. When I said we're not in a particularly strong position, I mean that we're not in a particularly strong position to win. We might win, but we might lose too. an equity argument can be made. And if they make that argument, they'll win. So with that in mind, I could go either way on this. I could vote for or against it, because I'm really right on the point of teeter-totter that
I
haven't-
don't think that we should be making decisions
Mhm.
that look forward to a lawsuit. I think. if
Well, I think we
read-
always make the decision with respect to lawsuits.
Yeah,
always.
I don't think we could operate under those conditions. That
Well, it's
every
a
decision we
factor to
make,
take in. For instance, I'm ready to vote no, and I'm ready to vote yes. I want to hear some more, well, no, I want to hear some more from the rest of the board,
No,
rather
I
than just
think-
you and me.
Yeah, I mean, I think they just turn their nose up at anything, feigned ignorance, no permits, it's midnight demolition. This message you send by approving this, as Lee says, basically just rubber stamps everybody up and down the block by yeah, we could use a two-story or a two-car garage in our front yard, let's go for it. And then you're in more trouble because you've already acquiesced and set a precedent on the block. I'd almost rather like plant the fat flag here and say, no.
I mean, I think also, right, like, this has been out there for a bit now, and zoning staff has made a recommendation of filling in half of the excavated area that could potentially negate the need for one of the variances. Like, there's been no exploration of that as an option by the applicant. You know, no kind of compromise, just approve what we did without permits.
So is your understanding the same as mine, which is that if they did that fill in, they lose the need for the variance for the 3 stories?
I mean, possibly, right? I think we can't say here with, you know, without doing the survey work and kind of understanding what the grade changes are, but
But
you
they
know.
could manipulate that and make it
Yeah.
happen.
I think so.
Right.
And, you know, and then it would just be one parking space within the setback. You know, you could just have the one car straight in from the curb cut.
and again, I would say that every neighbor up and down the block would do the same thing. It's an avalanche.
I'm not gonna be cynical, but you know, there's a lot of you know, Hail Mary passes being thrown here. We're getting a doctor's note, 11th hour kind of. You know, at that point, I'd almost say, you know what, save some money, put a lift, a modest lift from the ground floor up to your living space and ease your arthritic and asthmatic condition that way.
I'm sure there's other solutions, plus the language from the doctor with may,
Yeah, of course.
not does.
Mhm.
So anybody else that wants to weigh in? Nope. Well, then let's put it to a vote. Is there a motion to either grant or to deny?
Okay, I've stuck my neck out before on this. I will make a motion that we deny this application in total.
Okay, is there a second to your motion?
I'll second that. I'll go with Leon.
Tom and Lee have made the motion. So all in favor of a denial, raise your hand and say that you're in favor of the denial.
Favor of the denial.
Favor of the denial.
All right, so it's unanimous. I think, Tammy, you could give the applicant some advice as to how to scoot around some of the difficulties that they've got so that a lawsuit is not necessary and they can accomplish what they want to accomplish. But they can't do it by ignoring the needs for zoning approvals and building permits. That's not the way to go. All right, so the application is denied, therefore I would imagine our friendly building department's not going to listen to them until they come up with another solution.
That's correct.
Okay. So what's next? We have
Minutes.
a variance of nothing.
Huh.
For the, administrative actions, action on the hearing and minutes from the last time around, March 16th. Did anybody get a chance to look at those?
Yes, I had no issues.
Okay, Danielle, you say that you have.
Look
no
good to
issues
me.
either?
Yep,
That's good.
no issues.
Status of training. Have all the board members actually completed it, including Lion?
I'm not certain if Keith Line was able to attend.
Yeah, I'm not certain either. I think it's time to send Lion a little letter saying, we have some doubts that you've maintained the level of training is necessary. Could you inform us of when you have gotten the required training?
Yeah.
Because how many absences has he had? I mean, come on.
I'm
He's
not
basically
certain.
not a board member. So we've already decided who's next. We would have to tell the mayor what our choice is, and he makes the final decision, obviously. But you know, Tom was next in line. If Mr. Lyon decides that he, because of his business concerns, really is not able to maintain his position on the board or obtain getting the required education.
How many credits do you remember how many credits you got for that training?
No, what I do remember is it was an all-day session, and when you got to the end at 4 or 4:30, there was a required element in there.
Okay.
And if you had that element, because you're stuck in all the way through, then
Yeah. Before the next meeting, I'll
that
let
was
you
not
know.
easy to do.
Yeah.
Then
Especially
you had met the
the
training
lunch
requirement.
humor.
Then you met the training requirement. That's what I recall.
Okay.
15 attorneys in 7 hours.
Yeah. That sounds good.
Yeah, I don't want to keep doing that one. I don't mind reading the book, which is like an encyclopedia, but did everybody get a book, by the way?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Ask Lion if he still needs his.
And Steve, did you read it all?
It was a beautiful book. Beautiful, beautiful.
Some
There's a
light
lot of
reading
good
before
stuff.
bed.
The only
Yeah.
thing is,
You know, I appreciate John.
go ahead.
The attorneys were subject matter experts, especially in our area. Sometimes you go to these trainings and you have representation from different parts of the country. It was good to have professionals from our county itself that knows what we go through as homeowners and neighbors and people who travel in our neighborhood. So it was kind of, those are the good parts of the training.
Well, I find the training helpful because the state law basically governs. The state is sovereign. The city is not. So whatever the state says goes. And then they can have arguments between federal and state all they want. So I find the book helpful. When I was thumbing through it again this morning, I was saying, it's going to take me weeks, literally weeks, to go through this thing. So, Ben, did you get a chance to look at the book?
Yeah, I've got my copy. And I was definitely through the whole training. What was that comment though? Was there a thing that we had to like fill out at the end to prove that we were there the entire time? I don't know if.
I was wondering that at the end, how they know who was there and who wasn't there.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
have no
I was there all the way.
Ben, I think they were doing a roll call throughout, Ben. In the beginning at 9-ish, they were checking people's names in the beginning, but at the end they weren't checking names. I know it was in the beginning of the session.
I'll follow up with the organizer of the event just to make sure everybody gets the credit that they earned.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
I don't know if the Zoom would provide them the information of who attended. It might. I don't know. Didn't everything get a serial number?
They got an IP address.
I just wondered if we were individualized or whether it was a group thing. You don't know either. Okay. Anyway, ask them. And if it will take the best course of action, which is, I assume we all did it with the question of whether Lion did it or not. And once again, he needs to be asked if he wants to continue on the board because his business interests seem to interfere frequently.
Tammy, did you say that Steve was gonna go over the new zoning? I mean, I could
Well-
read it, or what's going on with that?
So I was remiss, I was supposed to reach out to the chair and Steve has offered to attend a meeting or set a separate meeting just to go over.
Separate.
yeah.
Separate. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't want to rush through a meeting just because Steve's gonna talk.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Okey-doke.
Yep, thank you.
Wonderful company. Thank you for coming this
Thank
evening.
you.
Wait, were our minutes approved?
Oh, I don't think
Yeah,
so.
of course they were.
Otherwise, okay.
They were?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Andy made a motion and then Danielle seconded. it.
Yeah,
You didn't know
there we go.
Sounds good.
that? And we all voted. We'll
Okay.
see you. I
Okay,
mean, we're
bye
gonna
now.
adjourn whether it's approved or not. We'll see you.
Thank you,
Night.
everyone.
Thanks, Ben. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Good
Have a
night.
good evening.
Have a good
Good
night.
night.
Have a good evening, y'all.